is the OnePlus 10 Pro, one of the worst kept secrets since the iPhone 4. Now we've had this phone for a few weeks now, and to spoil the end of this review, we think this is one of the best Android flagships you can get. But you've come here for a lot more detail than just me telling you whether it's good or not. And as you can see by the progress bar on this video here, we have a lot more detail to give you. So I've worked with Sean Riley and Mark Anthony Ramirez on the team, who have also been testing the 10 Pro to tell you exactly why this is such a good phone. But before we do, if you are a nerd like us, be a mate and subscribe for more reviews like this in the future. Cheers. Right, so where do I begin? Let's start by talking about all of this around here, because the phone to me is quite a looker. This matte black finish is stunning, and you can pick it up in a gorgeous forest green finish as well. Both boast this frosted Gorilla Glass back, which feels kind of like a premium soft touch plastic, made all the more premium by the fact that you can feel it's glass. And while on first impressions of this camera bump it reminded me a bit of a 4-hob stovetop, its integration to the metal rim around this phone has really grown on me. Plus, regardless of its bigger flagship size, it's actually quite sleek in the hand. It comes in smaller, thinner and lighter than the Google Pixel 6 Pro, and while the Samsung Galaxy S22 Plus shaves off a couple of dimensions here and there, it is actually just a little bit wider in the hand. But while OnePlus keep up in their game, there are two downsides here. You see, they've put a lot of work into the display. A 6.7-inch QHD Plus AMOLED panel with dual color calibration for getting the colors just right on different levels of brightness, AI adaptive brightness that learns what kind of brightness you like in certain situations, and second generation LTPO technology that can crank the refresh rate from the full 120 all the way down to just 1 Hertz, which really saves on power. Plus, the in-display fingerprint reader has been moved up slightly from the 9 Pro in previous generations, which feels a lot better to do so while one-handed. But the display is curved at the sides. I've only fallen victim to a few unintended touches as I've grazed the side of the phone, but I always prefer a flat display. They're just nicer to use and easier to protect with a case. And of course, unsurprisingly, there is no headphone jack on here, which makes my Sennheiser cans a little upset. But let's move on. Under the hood, you're getting a Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 chipset with up to 12GB LPDDR5 RAM and up to 256 gigs of UFS 3.1 storage. Sorry America, but you only get this one, which is the 8GB 128GB model. And as I'm going to go into, this is more than enough for quite an intense user like me. These kind of specs are up there with the cream of the crop of Android flagships, and with a 5-layer 3D passive cooling system that, if you took all the pieces out and laid them out flat, will cover an A5 piece of paper. The numbers match the specs as well. In Geekbench 5 testing, the OnePlus 10 Pro pipped the S22 Plus to the post and absolutely obliterated the Pixel 6 Pro. And it managed to outperform the Samsung in our 3D Mark Wildlife Unlimited testing with 61.2 frames a second, and it left the Pixel 6 Pro in its dust with a very distant 40 frames a second. And it's easy to make the most of this power thanks to Oxygen OS 12.1 on top of Android 12. All the upgrades to Oxygen OS you expect are here this time round. An improved dark mode, a tweaked OnePlus shelf, work-life balance 2.0, and all the attention to the finer design details of this skin as you'd expect. This is still one of my favourite Android skins since my first foray with it with the OnePlus 7T Pro. It's a clean UI with no bloatware, good customization and actually useful features in places where you'd expect them to be. Plus, OnePlus has promised 3 years of Android versions and 4 years of security updates. So good long-term support there. But as has been news over the past 12 months, OnePlus is now part of Oppo. And it has taken something from its parent company, namely the HyperBoost gaming engine, which tightens up the stability and tweaks certain bits of the software to give you the best possible gaming performance. This includes a general performance adapter, or GPA, which takes a look at the performance of your game in real time, reduces any kind of frame drops and stabilizes that frame rate, and OSync, which boosts the sync speed between the processor and the screen by up to 6 times. All of this can be quite power consuming, which we'll go into in a few seconds, but the end result is pretty damn good gaming performance. especially with the Game Sir X2. You can read my review of that on laptopmag.com. As for the battery, keeping all of this running is a 5000 mAh battery, which is a healthy step up over the 4500 mAh in the OnePlus 9 Pro, same size as the Google Pixel 6 Pro, and also a decent step up over the S22 Plus. And in our battery rundown test, this phone lasted 11 hours and 52 minutes. With the screen running at a full 120 Hz. If you're power saving and you drop that screen down to 60 Hz, you're going to get 12 hours and 39 minutes out of this. These numbers destroy both the S22 Plus and the Pixel 6 Pro. And in real world use, you can make it through an entire day of regular use, which for me includes plenty of podcasts, calls, checking my emails, plenty of games, binge watching YouTube at nights, and editing some photos on Photoshop Mobile, with 25 to 30% of battery remaining. In short, it's got some good stamina. And if you do manage to run this battery low, like if you use the Hyper Boost gaming mode, the 80 watt wide charging can boost this back up to full in around 32 minutes in my own testing. Granted, it's not the 23-minute 120 watt charging that you'll find in the Xiaomi 12 Pro, but it's still pretty fast nonetheless. Fast enough for me to plug in while I'm having a pint down at the local and have it done by the time I'm finished. And finally, let's talk about the big thing here, literally in terms of how significant this bump is. This is a second generation camera system from the romance between OnePlus and Hasselblad, which brings the latter's color science to the same 48 megapixel Sony IMX789 main camera sensor with an f1.8 aperture, an 8 megapixel telephoto with f2.4, and the newest addition, a 50 megapixel ultra wide camera with a 150 degree field of view. Alongside the upgraded snappers, the relationship has expanded into more areas too, such as new Hasselblad color calibrated master styles, which take inspiration from certain pro photographers to give you a broader range of creativity. And for those who like to customize on a more granular level, the option to shoot in a new pro mode called RAW Plus, basically 12-bit RAW, but with all the computational photography stuff still saved into the image, means that you've got all the benefits of noise reduction and improved dynamic range in the photography that you edit. And I'll be honest, coming from the iPhone 13 Pro, this change in color science was a little strange to me for the first few days of using this. Everything seems to be a lot more vibrant here, as photos are shot using a DCI P3 color gamut, which offers 25% more color coverage than most sRGB phone photography, even more when you use the option to shoot in 10-bit color, but most devices at the moment around you don't support that, so we won't dive too much into that. But over time, I got used to this signature style, which in my opinion is one of a kind. The only way I can describe it is that it's both really well balanced but super vivid all at the same time. Shots from the main camera are virtually noise-free. They produce an impressive dynamic range and have a good crisp sharpness to all the details within them. Sometimes it can veer ever so slightly into the hyperreal in difficult conditions, such as here, where it was direct sunlight onto the steps of the Nottingham Council House. But most of the time it sticks the landing, looking more natural than Samsung's uber vibrancy, but also more colourful than the more muted Pixel 6, sitting pretty between the two. A key downside to this setup is the telephoto, which produces overly vibrant pictures with limited detail because of its 8 megapixel sensor, so everything looks a little spongy. If OnePlus could slap a 50 megapixel telephoto on here for the 11 Pro, that would be swell. But shout out to the reinvigorated ultra wide camera, which is a hell of a lot of fun to use. The crisper pictures, the better color, everything has just been tightened up, and it makes this a decent lens to use, unlike other ultra wides on other phones. The 150 degree angle also gives you a fisheye lens mode to use as well, which makes for some fun 90s skater video-esque photography. Low light photography has also been improved over the 9 Pro, with shots hanging on to a more color accurate look, but it does still fall short of the undisputed low light champ, which is the iPhone 13 Pro. But kudos to the versatility of this night mode, which is available on all 3 sensors and gives you solid photos in near darkness so long as you and your subject can stay still. Video wise, you can shoot up to 8K 24 or 4K 120 frames a second. which this is still one of the only phones that can do that, which with that Sony main sensor and optical image stabilization translates into crispy video with good color. There is also an option to record in log format for the video pros if you'd rather color grade the footage afterwards. And round front you have a 32 megapixel selfie shooter, which picks out the details on your face really nicely with a good HDR mode to include all the detail without being blown out by the light. Just don't use any of the AI beautification features. So when you take everything into account, should you buy one? If OnePlus had kept that flagship $1,000 pricing of the OnePlus 9 Pro, this would have been a difficult question to ask, because this year flagship phones seems to have been getting quite competitive. But no, the OnePlus 10 Pro is available for $899 in the US, and it starts at 799 quid in the UK. That's $70 less than the 9 Pro. It's the same price as the Pixel 6 Pro, and it's 200 bucks less than the Samsung Galaxy S22 Plus, which with the upgrades that we've talked about and the great execution of all of the features in here, makes this one of the best Android flagships you can buy right now. If you can look past the small issues like the telephoto camera and the curved display, then this is a cracking phone to get, which puts my mind at ease about one critical thing, that just because OnePlus is a wholly owned subsidiary of Oppo doesn't mean it's lost its OnePlus spirit yet. And that's it. Thank you so very much for watching. Now I want to know what you think. Are you tempted to get the OnePlus 10 Pro, or do you have your sights set on another flagship? Go ahead and let me know in the comments. And don't forget, likes and subs if you enjoyed this video and can read the full review on laptopmag.com. I've been the awfully English Jason England, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.